First of all, we're going to talk about reasons to implement Tigerpaw Mobile. So first of all, let's start capturing that work as it's completed out in the field instead of having to rely on the technician's memory or their skills in writing in a notebook. Then let's go ahead and give the techs all of the information they need to complete their job in one place that can be updated live from Tigerpaw. So if something changes, you can easily notify the tech of that change and they can see that change reflected within the mobile application. Now, what are the benefits to the technicians? It's a double-sided sword, right? Well, the benefits to the technicians, first of all, is that they can see an agenda view. Everything that they have to do for the day is in one consolidated view. They can easily track their time. No longer do they have to remember what time they left, what time they got there, what time they started work, what time they left. They don't have to do that anymore. All they have to do is tap a button to start a timer. They have access to service details, the work that's requested, the internal comments, what's going on, what's happened before. All of that, which could be updated, is live and right there. You can upload pictures and notes directly from the field. So the example that I gave earlier where you go in there and it's a little bit of a different work, the scope of work is a little bit different based on a room being dirty or cluttered, you can take a picture of that, update it to the service order, explain why it took you a little bit longer. Pictures are worth 1,000 words. And you can communicate job status in real time. So what I mean by that is you leave, Tigerpaw can automatically put a little notice that says you're en route. You get there, you start work. Tigerpaw can notify the dispatcher via an icon on the dispatch board that work has begun. You've seen a new ticket that was assigned to you while you're out in the field. You can see that. A dispatcher can know for sure that you have seen that. So lastly, what are the benefits to your clients? We've talked about the benefits to you. We've talked about the benefits to the technicians. Now what are the benefits to your clients? Well, first of all, they can review the work that was completed while on the job. They don't have to wait to be sent an invoice. They don't have to wait to be sent a service order. They can see it right there. And they can even sign off on it. So once the tech shows them the work that was performed on their phone, they can say, are you happy with this? And they say yes, they can sign off on it right there. That actually makes you money quicker. Because when you have a signed off work order, you don't have to wait for a signature or feedback from the client. The tech got that while on site. You have a copy of the signature. You can send that off to the client with the invoice, and you can get your money a little sooner. So across the board, there's a lot of different reasons to go ahead and implement Tigerpaw Mobile. And so let's go ahead and let me dive into Tigerpaw Mobile, and I'll show you what it's all about. All right. So here's the agenda view. When you launch Tigerpaw, you're going to get this view on your phone. And this view actually tells me quite a lot of information. First of all, it tells me if I have any past due tasks, so I can easily review what those tasks were and get them taken care of. But more importantly, it gives me my day's agenda. And it's ordered in order of time. So first of all, we have an appointment. I know that because of the handshake. The handshake icon denotes an appointment, and if you look at that little screwdriver, that means that this appointment is actually tied to a service order. There's no start or end time on this particular task. It's just something that I'm supposed to do today. And it's for One Stop Dental, has to do with the virus removal, so you can kind of get a glimpse of what you're going to be doing for that service order. Now after that, I have to drop my truck off. And I know that because I have a task here. It's a to-do task. You can see that there's a page with the check marks on it, and that means to do. That's the icon for a to-do. It's not tied to a service order because there's no screwdriver next to it, and it looks like I just have to drop my truck off for service. And then this afternoon, I have a phone call that I need to make to One Stop Dental. It has to do with the service order because of the little screwdriver, and I know it's a phone call because of the phone icon. So all of the information that you need to complete your job for that day is here. And as new service orders are created back at home, they will populate this view. And if you have workflows set up correctly, a technician will get a workflow notification, an email on their phone saying you have a new service order. When they open up Tigerpaw, they will see that service order appear on their agenda. So now let's go ahead and dive into one of these. The first thing I have to do is stop by One Stop Dental. So if I tap on One Stop Dental, I'm taken to what I call the service order home screen. Here I see the person that I need to meet, Dr. Harold Johnson. I also have their address. The address is actually a hot link, so if you tap on the address, it'll take you to Google Maps where you can find directions to your location. If I'm running a little late, I can easily call the client by tapping on the phone number. It gives me the opportunity just to make a quick call. And lastly, if I need to go ahead and shoot an email out to the client, I can tap on the email address and it takes me to my mail application ready to type the subject of a new email to Harold. On the right side here, I see that it is a to-do, and I see that it's for SO number 1341, and it's a virus removal. I get the brief description there. Now, when I get into my car to head that way, I can go ahead and start the travel time. So by tapping Start, Tigerpaw does a few things on the back end. First of all, it creates a new time log with the reason code of travel, and it starts to add time to that time log. It also has the ability to change the status of the service order to en route or travel or something along those lines. And it will display a little icon of a truck on the dispatch board so the dispatcher knows that this is where my tech is going right now. Let's say you're driving and you have to stop by, pick up some coffee. You're really, really tired. You don't necessarily, if you bill for travel in the first place, you don't really need to bill for the travel time to get your coffee. So you can easily pause that travel time, and as soon as you pause that travel time, it will start adding up the deduction section of that particular time log on the back end. And the reason that we do that is so that you, as a business owner, have the ability to see how long it legitimately took your tech to get from point A to point B, but you're only billing for the time the tech spent en route to that place, not to stop and get a coffee or an Egg McMuffin or something like that. When they're ready to start going again, they can hit play and it will continue the time. Now, they get on site, and you can close this app. You can do whatever you want on your phone. That timer is going to keep going. When they get on site, they can open up the app, and they can go ahead and just hit the start time. Now I'm going to start my work. That does a couple things on the back end. First of all, it closes that travel time log. And you have an option in mobile options, which I'm going to discuss at the end of this webinar, to dictate whether you want a distance or you want odometer readings so that you can track that information as well. In this case, I have it set up for distance. So we're going to say that I drove 10 miles. 10 miles in a minute 7. I have a fast car. So what that does is now my work timer has started. The status of the service order is changed to open or in progress or however you set up mobile options. A little icon of a screwdriver is going to appear next to this particular task on the dispatch board, notifying the dispatcher that, hey, your tech is working. And the tech is actually legitimately working without having to worry about exactly what time he started and exactly what time he ended. Now, as he's working, he's going to need to know more about this service order, right? He's going to need to figure out what's going on, he or she. So what they're going to do is they're going to hit the update button, and that's going to take you into the detail of the service order. So we have brief description is virus removal. The work requested, user has suspected a virus, spyware or malware on their machine. And of course here you could have a lot more information, so that everything that the tech would need to complete their job should be here in the work requested. If they get on site and the client adds some to their work, they can easily tap on the work requested and they can add additional comments made from the client. You can free type using your keyboard, or you can dictate. Client would also like me to defrag their machine. So that's really easy. Or if you have comment libraries set up, you can pull from the comment libraries that you would have in Tigerpaw traditionally. All right. So you have the ability to add to the work requested. Now, the work performed is automatically going to be added when we stop work on this particular timer. Just like in Tigerpaw, when you close out a time log, it copies the work performed from that time log into the work performed of the service order, and Tigerpaw Mobile is no different. If they need to edit that or add anything to that freehand, they can do so in the same manner in which I went into work requested and updated it there. And finally, we have internal comments. So if there's anything that, of course, you wouldn't want the client to write off, write up C, you can write that there. That can help the tech, troubleshoot the job maybe a little bit more specifically. And when I mentioned earlier about having somebody, review the work that was done, that is why when you tap on work performed, it opens up in its own view. It hides the work requested. It hides the internal comments so that a tech can just show the client this, and they can, say, hey, this is everything that I did. Is this everything? Does this meet your expectations? Under time logs, you will see that we actually had the travel time log that's been saved. And I have rounding utilized, so it went ahead and rounded up. You can add expenses to this particular job. If you need to go buy a cable, if you need to do something along those lines, you can track your expenses. If you need to use parts on the job, you have access to a warehouse specified within mobile options that allows you to pull in items. If you get on site and you have to actually label what computer you're working on, oh look, we have the ability to add items serviced. You can add items serviced, you can add new items serviced if you're servicing something you've never serviced before, or you can pull from your customer asset history. If you need to add more than one tech onto this job, you can add multiple technicians. You can edit the date and time entries if you need to edit the date and time entries. And lastly, you can adjust the status. Now, we put all of this stuff in this order for a reason, because typically the act of starting work, finishing work, all of that is going to update the status. So you should not have to change the status very often. However, maybe you don't get completely done with the job this first trip out. If you don't get completely done with the job, then you're going to have to reschedule. So in that case, of course, you would want to be able to change the SO status. And then lastly, you have information on the account and the contact that's at the account. So you get on site and you realize that Dr. Harold Johnson had an emergency and he had to leave, and instead you're going to be working with Barb. You can easily change that straight from this view right here. So that's the service order detail view. As you can see, everything that you would normally need as a technician to do your job is found within that section. It's almost like we took Tigerpaw and we just put it into a mobile format, and you know what? That's exactly what we did. You also have access to a complete history of all of the service orders in which you've actually done something for this client. So if your tech has to go back through, service order history to figure out what we did last time, here is your full history. And look, the history is even in a list view format that's very similar to what you're used to seeing in Tigerpaw. You can filter that view, if you need to, by any of the following criteria, and you can choose what is displayed by any of the following criteria. So you have full control over the list view here. You're on site, you need access to an account password, a server login, something along those lines. You can easily have access to that by clicking on passwords. And from here, you have a list of your existing passwords. You can add new passwords as well. And look at this. This is really cool. When you go to add a new password, you can have it generate a password for you. And the passwords that it generates are pretty sophisticated, as you can see here. And since you are always going to have Tigerpaw Mobile on your phone and you're always going to have access to Tigerpaw in general, you don't have to make these passwords rememberable or memorable. So you can even make new passwords while you're out in the field. It can help you with that. And when you go to access a password, like Dr. Johnson's PC, it's actually going to have you re-enter your Tigerpaw Mobile password, because on the off chance that your phone gets swiped and you're still logged into Tigerpaw Mobile, you wouldn't want to release that sensitive information. So it's just an added layer of security there. Below this, we have a little picture of a task, and this is the task that's scheduled for the service order. So the middle part of this screen all has to do with the service order. The bottom part of this view has to do with the task that is actually scheduled. So, as I had mentioned before, let's say you don't get done with the job in one trip. We know that happens. You can complete the task by hitting complete at the bottom without actually having to complete the service order, so you would not hit the complete button in the middle. So you would go into the service order, change the status to something like needs dispatched, and then go down and actually complete your task saying, I've done what I can do today. That will end up on the dispatch board ready to be rescheduled. When it is rescheduled, again, it would show up on your agenda. So there's ways to handle any situation that comes up while you're out in the field with Tigerpaw Mobile. Now when you're done with the job, you can go ahead and hit the stop button. Notice that we also have a similar pause button within work if you need to pause a time log for any reason. But this is awesome because when you hit stop, a pop-up comes up that says, hey, what were you doing? It allows you to select a reason from your list of available reasons. So maybe I was actually repairing. And then I can type in what I did right here. And when I type this in, it will automatically update the work performed of the service order. Think about this for a minute. This also gives you the ability, if you go on site and you have to do multiple different jobs, and maybe those jobs have different rates tied to them, to track all of that within this view. So if I can go ahead and type in the work performed, I'll dictate again because, of course, it's easier to dictate than anything else. Removed virus from PC. There it is. I click on OK. I can rest assured that that automatically updated the work performed of the service order. It also closed out the time log for me, and you know what? I can start a new timer if I need to start a new task. So it's a very easy way to track your time, and it's all in real time. It's all right there. And if you were starting that time, you notice there's that X button there. Well, let's say that you started that and you're like, oh no, I shouldn't have done that. You can easily just go ahead and cancel out. It'll ask you, are you sure you want to clear this? You'll say, okay, it won't actually create a time log for that. So you have the ability to pause a time log, to stop a time log when you're done with the work and actually add in what you did as well as what reason code should be tied to the work that you did. You also have the ability to go ahead and cancel out of that, hit the X button and just erase it so that it does not log. And we really wanted to put an emphasis when we designed this. We wanted to put an emphasis on processes, which is why we put in everything that a tech would need out in the field, and we tried to make it as simple as possible. Now, this isn't the only thing in Tigerpaw Mobile. If you click on the agenda, the toolbar, which I like to call it, up on the top, you have access to a myriad of different options. You can actually create a service order if you need to, straight from this app. You can add a task to that service order to schedule it yourself to come back. You can add a time slip if you want to add a quick little time log of what you did without actually having it tied to any work that you're doing. If you need to track your time, we can do that here. You have an expense list, so you can see your expenses in a list view format. Service order list, very similar to the service order history list that I was talking about before. The only difference is that this is going to be a list of all of your service orders. So if you get an email that says, oh no, Todd called in sick, can you please take this service order from him, service order number 1234, you can filter by service order 1234 and pull up that service order even if it's not assigned to you. You can, of course, see your task list if you needed to, and your time entry list. It also gives you the ability to refresh the data and ultimately log out. So there's a lot of options within this scroll bar that you get to by hitting on the top agenda button. Pretty much anything that a tech would need out in the field can be done within this application now. I know when we first launched this app, it left some to be desired. We were focused on the process and not so much on the features, but we've come a long way. So for those of you that have actually been here from the beginning, I thank you. And for those of you that are kind of on the fence, now is the time. We've really made this better, and we're only going to continue to enhance this. So let me take a moment and see what kind of questions I've gained by going through this little demo. We can answer those questions, and then I want to quickly show you the configuration side of this in Tigerpaw, because some of this stuff is optional, and I want to show you what power you have on what you can track out in the field. But let's go ahead and take a look at some of these questions here. All right. Can you also briefly talk about the version history, and is this the new version? Oh, good. That's a good question because I had just mentioned that. This is the most current version of the software that we have out right now. So everything that you're seeing here is brand new, and the things that have changed since the revisions previously are things like the ability to create multiple workflows with the time, or multiple time logs with the timer button, and the ability to pause and stop and do some other things like that. All right, can the tech see the ship to address? This is an issue we have run into. That's a really good question. Unfortunately, we didn't think that the ship to and bill to information were relevant to a technician to complete the task at hand. I can see how that could be, however, so I'll put that into feedback. Right now, it's not there. You could get around that by putting it into internal comments or something along those lines if you needed to. Can you view more than 3 tasks on the screen? Oh, yeah. I just have 3 in my actual database. You can have as many. I mean, this could scroll for a lot longer. I mean, there's no limit, I guess is the best way to answer that, on how many tasks a tech can have scheduled for a given day. And if you go left and right, you can see, you can go to the different days, like here's Thursday, here's today, here's Tuesday. If you tap on that, you have the ability to go to a specific date. Can you select which location's phone number is displayed? Well, the service order should be created for the location that you are servicing. So, of course, it would be that location's phone number that is displayed on that home screen. I have noticed the work performed does not copy from the time logs. Is this something that has been fixed? Yes, it has been fixed. The time performed now does copy to that, and it may also have to do with some of your internal settings. So if you have any questions, you want to kind of go through some of that, I would highly recommend hopping into an Ask the Expert session. We have them every day at 1 o'clock, and let's go ahead and talk about some of the options that influence why something may not be copied, because everything that Tigerpaw Mobile does is derived from how you have Tigerpaw set up. So we might want to review some of that, but I do know that it is definitely will copy the work performed. All right. If you add an expense on the mobile app in an SO, can you transfer into parts and labor? No, you can't. That's not tied to the mobile app, however. That's just tied to Tigerpaw in general. Right now, expenses are their own thing, and they cannot be moved into parts and labor. Expenses are more for a tracking mechanism, and we just extended that into this. If more than one tech is on site and both are using the app, do you have to add the tech manually? Not if you set the service order up with two techs with two tasks. If you set up the service order correctly and you actually assigned a task to each technician, they'll both have a copy of that in their agenda, and they can both track time if they need to. Now, if you only really want to bill for one of the times, then maybe you don't have one of them track their time, but you can still have them track their time. Just mark their time log as unbillable. So it's up to you on how you want to deal with that, but you can definitely schedule that at the same time. I thought there was going to show off new features coming soon. The new features are not quite ready yet. We will be showing that because that question came up. We are working on enhancing this to include sales opportunities and account management. So you will get some more features down the line here coming up soon, but I do not have that to show today. My techs worry about going from one screen to another in Tigerpaw without losing data. If they go from entering in a time log to updating the information from the time log is lost, if they do not press save first. Well, that's a good point. Under most circumstances, when like the timers are saved automatically, but you have to make sure that when you're in a view updating something, like if I go into, let's say, I go into this service order and I go to update that service order and I change something, you want to make sure that you actually save your changes. That's just how a lot of apps work. We don't want to auto-save as you go because that will actually start using a lot more data and stuff because it will want to sync back to the it'll want to sync back to the database over and over again. So we give you control over when to save. Just make sure that you hit save, and save can be found in the top in the same place on every screen. So good point. I'm glad you brought that up. Can this app be loaded on an iPad or tablet? What is it compatible with? Yes, it can be loaded onto an iPad or a tablet as long as it's Android or Windows. We work with the web browsers within Android, or not Windows, and Apple. We do work with the web browser in iOS as well as the web browser in Android. We do not currently support Windows Mobile. We do not currently support Windows Mobile. They don't give their mobile browser enough access to really tie in the way that we need it to tie in. So could that change? Maybe, but currently we do not support Windows Mobile. Where does Tigerpaw store the signatures and pictures? It actually stores the pictures within a specified place that you specify within mobile options. I'll show you that in a minute. The signatures are stored within the database itself, and if you activate a special report, a service order with signature report, when you print off that service order, you can actually have it print that signature onto it. So that is where that saves. Can we schedule a task on the fly within mobile? Of course. All you have to do is go up to the agenda and go down to add task. If you add a task from right here, it's actually going to tie to the service order itself. If you add a task from the home screen, it just adds a normal task. Does this work for iPhones? Yes, I'm using an iPhone right now. Is there an admin that you can see what each individual tech is doing? Well, from within Tigerpaw itself, the dispatch board, that is going to be where you can see what all of your techs are doing with the icon updates and all of that good stuff. But there is not an admin app per se. But that's an interesting idea. I'll have to think about that, and I'll maybe put that into feedback. What does the complete button do versus the update button? Well, if you're here and the complete button, in this case, this complete button that you see right here, so right here, that is actually going to close out the service order completely. And that will change the service order status to closed. It will remove the service order from the tech's agenda. This update button, this gives you the ability to dive into the specifics of the service order. So this is where you would add the stuff manually to that service order. This complete button down here, this one will only complete the task, or you can go in and you can update the task's information. So that's what those buttons are. It's a good question. Thank you, Amy. Where is the best place to enter feature requests? Well, our Tigerpaw community is a really good place to enter in feature requests. You can also email me, and I can put those into our feedback. You can talk to your account rep. We're always available for putting in feedback. What happens to the timer if the tech needs to use other apps? Oh, no problem on that whatsoever. If the tech needs to do other apps, then we can easily just swap on over. So that timer continues to go in the background. And that's about the time that I have for questions today. You guys have asked quite a lot of questions, and that's definitely good. Some common things that I get asked is battery life. Well, this doesn't really work any differently than a web browser or anything other than that, so you don't have to have it open like I have to have it open right now all the time. You can shut off your phone if you need to, or put your phone to sleep and all of that. So under normal app usage, the battery life should stay the same. Data rates, it's just like a web browser. You're basically interfacing in with your database. So if you surf the internet, that's equivalent to the amount of data that is used when using this app. So there's some, basic information there. And then lastly, the one thing that I wanted to show you when you do decide that you're done with the job, when you go to sign it, you simply hit the signature button. You get a signature pad, and you can sign it, and that'll save the signature. And then once you save a signature, it's important to note that you cannot redo that signature. The button goes away. It is no longer accessible. They've signed off on that. It's done. So now let's go ahead and finish up the webinar by taking you into Tigerpaw itself. I do want to show you some of the options on the back end of Tigerpaw. So I'm going to go ahead and launch up Tigerpaw real quick. I am going to hop into my mobile demo database. And I'm going to, a lot of these options are actually set up under Tools, Options, Mobile Options. So on the global setting, you first of all dictate whether you want to allow a 24-hour login period, because logging in here does actually, it will use a service license. You can set up your regional settings, and then this is the configuration for the web stuff when you go to install mobile. You have travel options, so if you don't really want to allow travel options, you can turn off travel entries altogether. You can also turn off the creating of travel expenses. Default expense type, we have mileage. We have a bunch of other ones that you can choose to. Default payment type for those expenses that are created. You can allow mileage entry, or you can require odometer readings, so that's important to note. And then the billing options for created expenses, are they considered reimbursable or are they considered billable to the client? Again, reference only, it will not actually bill the client. You can also allow travel time logs. So the time log reason is service. You can change the SO status based on that. Under work, we have the default log reason is on site. Of course, you can change it when you close out of that timer. And when you complete work, what status do you want to move the service order into? So when they say they're complete with the job, what status do you want to move it into? Ready for billing? What do you want it to do? You have the option to also have completing that, also finish all of the tasks. You can have them completed or delete the task. I always recommend complete, and you can also have it create a journal entry. And if you want to, you can update the dispatch board. If you have this checked, that's where the icons come through. That's where you kind of can stay up to date on what's going on from the dispatch board for your technicians. So that's some of the mobile options that we have there. Now, what you're all been probably waiting for, we do have a special offer for those of you that have attended this webinar. If you decide to take advantage of this, you have until September 30th, 2014. But you have the ability here to purchase, if you purchase a mobile subscription and you get service licenses, because you'll probably need them, you can get 20% off of those service licenses. So contact your account representative today for more information on taking advantage of that good offer. And it is only for webinar attendees only. So the people that came back in, thank you so much. And the people that did not come back, we'll go ahead and shoot an email out, and we'll also have a recording of this video. So this will be recorded if you need to review it or if you need to do anything else. Any questions that I did not get to, go ahead and you can go ahead and hop into any of our Ask the Expert sessions. I'd be more than happy to answer the questions there. And I'd really, truly like to thank you all for attending this session today. Have an absolutely wonderful day, and I will talk to you hopefully all in a future session.